Hi, folks. My name's Andy Willard. I'm a public engagement specialist with Go Triangle, and I'd like to welcome you to our series, Zooming into Transit. So today, our guests are Simone Oates-Bullock. She's also a public engagement specialist at Go Triangle. And we have Erin Kane from the DCHC MPO. So first things first, I just want to acknowledge the reason why we're doing these videos. And that reason is to connect with a public that, for the most part, is staying at home. And getting your input on some of the projects that are currently moving forward. Coronavirus is affecting us all as a community, and especially for public transit agencies like Go Triangle and some of the partners that we work with. We are providing an essential service for folks, getting first responders, healthcare workers, and other essential employees to their jobs. And we're doing our best, and so are our transit partners, to keep the buses and things as clean as possible. So some of the things that we've been doing are, cleaning regularly during the morning and the afternoon. We've purchased a fogger. Go Triangle has to become more effective at disinfecting the buses. All the agencies across the triangle are doing rear boarding now and have eliminated fares during the crisis. So a lot of things have been done to keep the transit system safe, but we are still encouraging folks to only make those trips during, only making essential trips when necessary. So if you're like us and you're at home but still missing the bus, there are quite a few opportunities to still be involved with transit. So with that, I'm going to move into what we're talking about today, which is the FY21 Durham Transit Work Plan. All right, so Erin, let's get started and sort of give people an understanding of what a work plan really is. So could you maybe give a little overview of the transit plan itself and how the work plans every year roll up to that?
Sure, absolutely. So the Durham County Transit Plan was adopted in 2017 by the three governing boards that oversee the plan: the Durham Chapel Carrboro MPO Board, the Go Triangle Board, and the Durham County Board of Commissioners. And while the transit plan oversees and provides a blueprint for funding and projects for multiple years, every year we do basically an annual allocation of funds to each plan, to each project. And that's what the Durham Transit Work Plan is for. And what we're working on now is developing the one for the FY21 year, which will be from July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
Awesome.
Okay, so essentially this process is to make sure that all of the stakeholders are kind of involved.
Yeah, we make sure that all of our stakeholders are involved. All of our transit agencies from Durham County, Go Durham, and Go Triangle are all a part of the development of this plan, of this work plan. And they submit the projects to us that they think they're going to be able to accomplish in the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And then before we do get into what's coming for the next fiscal year, did want to take a moment and talk about what's already been done to the transit system. So one thing that we really want to highlight is the improvements that have been made to bus stops for Go Durham. I think people forget that a bus stop is the first point of contact for a lot of customers that are using the transit system. So it is important that those are places that customers feel safe, that they can, get there easily and they are accessible. So 19 locations have been constructed so far in terms of bus stops. The city and Go Durham work very closely together to determine where those improvements are being made first. And they are continuing to be funded through the sales tax. So even more improvements are going to be made in the next year. And then in terms of the service expansion that's been done for Go Durham, that's all in line with the short range transit plan that was passed in 2019. So that's adding high frequency corridors, additional frequency, and really responding to what we've heard from people in the community saying that the bus service needs to be expanded. So a lot of improvements have been made, but there's still more room for additional services. All right. So these are some of the projects that have been proposed. So Erin, I'll sort of let you take it away to talk through this list at a high level and give folks what they need to know.
Yeah. So the first bullet you have there, Go Durham additional night and weekend service. That is something we started in FY20 in January of in January of 2020, looking to add full funding for those services to continue in the next fiscal year. The transit emphasis corridors on Fayetteville Street, Holloway Street, and Chapel Hill Street. What those are improvements to bus stops, so shelters, landing pads, and signage and so forth, but also doing things around the bus stop so to make it easier for people to get to them. So additional sidewalks, crosswalks, signals, maybe crossing signals if we need them, anything else we can do to make it easier for people to access the transit service and feel safe and comfortable in their neighborhood around the transit service. So we, like I mentioned, Fayetteville Street, Holloway Street, and Chapel Hill Streets are three of the areas that we're targeting with these transit emphasis corridors. We're also going to be purchasing vehicles for Go Triangle, Go Durham. I know at least on the Go Durham side, there will be 3 new electric buses that we'll be using to, one, help with emissions controls and making sure the city is meeting its targets for reducing greenhouse gases, as well as providing additional vehicles for the additional service that we're going to be ramping up. In addition to all those bus stop improvements you talked about outside of the transit emphasis corridors, we're also going to be looking to designing some additional sidewalks, crosswalks, signage, and so forth in other areas. So if there are bus stop improvements that are done outside of the transit emphasis corridors, we've got a little over $1 million in funding to help with sidewalk improvements and other pedestrian access to those stops in other areas. Bus speed and reliability improvements, this is more important than a lot of people might think. What this does is it can change the curbs or the way the road is configured to make it easier for buses to make stops, or make movements. A great example is if you've ever been on a bus and it wants to make a right-hand turn, but it can't make that turn because the way the curb is constructed, it would have to go into the oncoming traffic in order to make that turn. And somebody's trying to make a left or is stopped or something, and the bus just sits there not able to make the right turn. Well, that slows everybody down, makes it harder, it makes it take longer for people to get places. So we want to be able to change some of those roadway configurations so that people, the buses can run more on time and run more quickly. So there's money set aside for that, as well as priority safety improvements for certain stops for Go Triangle. If we're not doing a full-blown improvement of the stop, we do have a little bit of money for some safety improvements.
That's super helpful. And I did want to point out too, because I think sometimes it can be confusing because we have Go Triangle, we have Go Durham, Go Cary, Go Raleigh, lots of different local transit agencies. So for Go Triangle, we do serve the Durham community, and those routes that serve Durham County include the 400, the 405, the 700, the DRX, and the ODX. And so we serve customers in the Durham community and across the Triangle. And I think that's really important to make that distinction as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the most Go Triangle's most ridden route is the DRX. If not, it's one of the highest. Fact checkers out there. All right. So in terms of next steps, I know that, like I said up top, we are collecting public comment. That's the reason for this presentation. But then can you talk a little bit about where the comments go and how they are used?
Sure. So the comments will come to me. It's that simple. Comments will come to me. We're looking, we really do want people to let us know if the projects that we're looking to do next year are something that's going to be important to them. And if there is a little tweak or something to a project that's currently funded, let us know. And we can certainly pass that along to any of our transit agencies so they can implement that. We'll take comment through the 22nd of May. And then this will go in June to the Go Triangle Board of Trustees for their June meeting, for their June budget meeting to adopt it for next year.
Okay. And then we wanted to include a little bit more about the Durham Transit Plan, because I know that we explained how the work plan sort of allocates the monies that are described in the projects in a Durham Transit Plan. But there's an update happening. So if you could walk us through some of this, I think that would be helpful as well.
Sure. And I would say, at least on the Durham side, it's not just an update, but we're really looking at starting almost starting over from scratch here.
Mm-hmm.
We know we have the transit tax funds that's going to be coming in and providing a lot of service for transit, but what exactly should that service look like in the future? We had the previous Durham Orange Light Rail Transit project that's no longer going forward, and we had a lot of money set aside for that project. Now that we have more flexibility and more funding flexibility, what is it going to look like in the future? Are we going to be focusing on major capital? Are we going to be focusing on local bus? Are we going to be focusing on regional bus? We really don't have the answers to those questions right now. So what we're doing is restarting our transit plan. We have hired a firm, Kinley Horn & Associates, who has several subcontractors working with them to spend the next year or so looking at developing a new transit plan for us. And we are going to be doing robust public engagement throughout this process. And as soon as we're able, we'll be moving forward with our next round of engagement, hopefully this summer, if the public health crisis allows us to do so.
Right. And so here we have some of the additional investments. And as we know, Commuter Rail is a pretty big project next up on our list. And so back in February, I'm sure you remember, we held a public meeting to get community input on the path forward. So if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit more about some of the next steps regarding Commuter Rail?
Sure. So the major next step that we're doing with Commuter Rail is a more in-depth study on what exactly would be the benefits and potential ramifications of doing Commuter Rail. How much would it cost? How many riders would it host between Durham and Raleigh? How much benefit would it provide to Durham? And what are some of the things we're going to need to address if we were to put a commuter rail system in? How would it get through downtown Durham? Where exactly would the stations be, and so forth? Right. So we have a study that we're undergoing over the next 12 to 18 months to answer those questions, and we'll be providing the information as we get it, as that study goes along, as part of our Durham transit plan engagement as well. So when people come to tell us about what's important in terms of the next transit plan, we'll also be providing them with any information we have regarding commuter rail, so they can give us informed input as we put together the next transit plan.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And I can actually introduce this one as well. We wanted to talk about the South Point bus stop and park and ride, because the park and ride is actually going to be expanding. And because of that, they wanted to move the stop to be a little closer there. So the city of Durham has been working closely with the streets at South Point to build that, or to get the approval so that the streets at South Point can build a new bus bay along Renaissance Parkway. So it'll be closer to where the new park and ride is, which serves quite a few residents of Durham County. I know that our buses run from that park and ride into Chapel Hill, so a lot of folks are commuting into work from there. And then this timeline gets us up to July. So we don't have to go through and talk about every different board that looks at and then reviews the work plan before it's finally approved. But I did want to ask here, Aaron, where along this timeline would there be sort of a reconsideration of projects in the work plan because of the current situation with the coronavirus?
So that would be right now, here in April. Mm-hmm. We are releasing the draft. I believe by the time this video goes up, you're going to have a copy up on the website. And we'll also have it on our website at www.dchcmpo.org. You can see it there as well. And you can provide comment to me. I'll have my contact information there. You can provide me that comment, and we'll absolutely be sharing that with all of our transit partners as we update the draft of the work plan before it goes to the Go Triangle Board. In addition, we'll also be taking this in May to the Durham County Board of Commissioners for their comment, as well as the DCHC MPO Board for them to provide us comment as well.
Great. So like Aaron said, get those comments into us. You can go to view the draft project list on goforwardnc.org or the URL that Aaron just spoke out for you. If you want to, you can also mail comments to him at City Hall in Durham. That phone number right there you can use to leave a voicemail. And as always, you can stay up to date on Twitter at DCHCMPO. So with that, we'll leave you folks to leave your comments. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me today.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.